for those guys to open up their homes
Yeah,
and for
that,
us
I
to
mean,
go and
yeah, for
so
sure.
no man, it was that was probably my best experience, one of my best experiences until this day. I've had maybe like three or four of the families come and ask me about it too. Hey man, we heard that you were out there and you were playing rugby and man, so nah, shout
Yeah.
out to the people in Nuance too.
Yeah, shout out to them, man. Like, and no, we heard it when I was in Vivao. I was like, at first I was kind of like, what? And then, and then you got to understand, there was a lot of guys that were very talented in sports, right? Rugby, volleyball, and
Yep.
so that was literally the icebreaker to kind of get the village. No matter where you served, right? If you served in, Niwa, or you served in Vivao or Hapai, or even the main island, a lot of those guys are like, man, this is how we can connect with the villagers, right? And so the talents you mentioned was awesome. Like, like that's how I literally taught. I taught was like, man, the only way I can go is, hey, let's go to the Ruta. Let's go to the bushes.
Exactly.
Yeah, we'll help you, we'll help you with your farm and stuff like that. And Hopeye, I did a lot of that. And so, man, that's cool, man. Any struggles on your mission that you want to mention or you want to tell, like that really straighten your testimony there?
Man, I honestly, to be honest, I felt like it was such a, I wouldn't say necessarily hard, like it was necessarily hard or anything like that. I just felt like, I try to pride myself, like trying to be in their shoes, like cold showers, sleeping on the floor, not really
Right,
having much to eat. Like I
right.
would try to I just wanted to try to live like them, for a little bit, coming from obviously from us, coming from the States
Sure.
and being so fortunate, thinking that we have it bad. But yeah, you go out there and, mosquitoes always out, you
Oh
getting
yeah.
bitten everywhere. I got a couple scars on my feet and on my, some, but man, I don't think there was necessary. I wouldn't say there was necessarily like any like physical hard, experiences that I actually went through that was just like, man, I don't know if I could ever go back. Like if I would love to go back to Tonga again and, I still have a lot of family out there. Yeah, I
Right.
mean, shoot, Tonga was awesome, man. I loved it over there.
Have you been back since your mission?
Yeah, so after my mission, I came back in '09, right? And then I go back the following year, me and my dad to go and it was his grandma had passed away in 2010. And fortunate enough I got to meet her finally for the first time when I
Wow.
was out there on my mission. And so yeah, it was in Homa. And so we went out there and no, it was cool, man, being out there and seeing people again. And my dad, he hadn't been back to the States in like over 20 plus years. And so, and as we're traveling, we stopped in Fiji for a little bit and before we make our way to Tonga. And then I remember stopping in Fiji, and I went straight to the bathroom. I changed into like a white shirt with the tupendo.
Right.
And I told my dad, I'm like, Dad, you better go and change your clothes, man. As soon as you get off the plane, they're about to ask you for money. And sure enough, as soon as we get off, man, a
Yeah.
ton of people, coming up and asking my dad. And my dad he wasn't prepared for it. But so this dude started just giving out 20s and
Right.
50s before you could actually exchange it. But
Oh man.
that was the next time. That was the next
Right,
time that
right.
I went to Tonga was the following year.
No, that's cool, man. So coming back from your mission and then playing at Mount Sac, I mean, was that the vision? Because you did locked in. So when you came back from your mission, was that the goal? It was like, man, I'm gonna lock in. I'm gonna go play ball. Um, Obviously, it looked like you had a really good, first year with Mount Sac campaign, and then you started getting that, highly recruited during that time. So tell us a little bit about that process and your time at Mount Sac.
Yep. So coming back, right? This goes back to my Brighton story again, right? So when I come back, I was basically forced to go the JUCO route because of my grades. Right? We go back to talking about the grades again, right? One, I was decent enough in terms of playing
All right.
wise, and then two, my grades weren't even that good, so
All
that was
right.
like a double, subtraction from the score sheet. And so from there, I was forced to go the JUCO route. And didn't want to stay at Snow. Not that I had anything bad against Snow. I was just like, man, I think I need to go out again. I just need to kind of like how I was at Brighton.
Right,
I
right.
need to get out of my environment. So go to Mount Sac. And like I say, after my first game, I had a handful of offers, and then that entire season right there, went All American and had so many different offers. I wish I would have kept it or took a picture. And I think I started getting so many offers that I was like getting a little big headed. You know what I mean? So we're All American for both years over there at Mount Sac. And from all the offers, right, from Pac-12, Mountain West to Big 12,
Right, right.
and then a handful of SEC schools. And so it was such a great time being out there at Mount Sac, and especially being out there with some of my roommates, who were all from the state of Utah. We were all had on that same grind, trying to make a better living, not a better living, but just kind of having a try to really push for something that our Polynesian people, like you said, right? We're all so talented, but we gotta be able to lock in with the school portion. And so from there, that's kind of like
Right.
where it transitioned to coming back home and being able to play in front of the family here at Utah.
Right. So let's talk about because you mentioned it a couple times, like and I think that's the downfall with a lot of us Polynesians, right? We get a little cocky, we get a little big headed, you know what I mean? Like and sometimes it's because of, where we come from, and how we have to fight for a lot of things, like growing up in Glendale, kind of similar to, me growing up in Compton. So, you know, to grow up in those neighborhoods, you got to fight for every scrap, right? And so sometimes when you have success or you have a little bit of success, it might rub a lot of people the wrong way, right? Because they might think, "Man, this guy's cocky," but it really is like, "Nah, man, we had to get here. We have to really fight, and this is who we are." So, you know, just to add on to that because I don't want people to think that you were just a cocky guy because
Mm.
I didn't see that. I mean, like it's our demeanor, right? It's who we are, and it's how I promote my business too. So a lot of people might take that as, man, this guy's always posting, this guy's cocky, and for me, it's like, nah, bro, I know where I came from. I know what it took to get to this point, and so to watch you and to watch your journey, that's how I viewed it. Like
Mm.
I literally viewed it as, nah, I don't see that as that. I see that as this man worked his butt off to get to where he's at. And if you look at it as cocky, that's on you.
Yeah,
That's a you issue. You
I
know what I mean?
appreciate
Like,
it,
and
man.
so
Heck
for
yeah.
me, it was always like, yeah, nah. For me, it was like, when I watch it and I see a lot of our guys, they're successful, right? People might look at The Rock and there's like, this guy's cocky, but they don't know
His
that's his
backstory.
character, and
Yeah.
and what his persona was is actually who he is,
Mm.
like, and he worked so hard to get to that point, and I look at you, man, and I said, "Never change who you are, though, like, 'cause I see it." You know what I mean? I see it, and it kind of reminisces of, like, our upbringing and where we come from, so, take pride in that, and I
Yes,
get it,
sir.
like,
I like it. Yeah.
there's moments where we gotta, loto maulalo, we gotta, be patient and be humble at times, and we know it. Only you and I would know it, and those around that seen a little bit of success. For us, we were like, okay, yeah, I could be humble at this moment, but at the same time, man, I'm proud of you, man. I'm
No,
proud
I
of
appreciate it, bro.
where you are and all the your journey. So let's talk about going into your playing career at University of Utah. How was that? And then was coaching ever a thing after football?
Yeah,
Talk about
so
that.
so my first main big test, right? My very first big test was get there to University of Utah, right? I feel like I'm still on riding, high clouds. I'm feeling good. Oh, I got to come back home, and
Right.
man, the first thing I run into, right, is I end up getting a fractured it's called the fifth metatarsal, right? It's your pinky toe. Had a little hairline fracture there. So I couldn't play the
Man,
first year. Couldn't play the first year. And me wanting
right,
to, play so bad, I like, just I feel like for a lot of people who've gone through any injuries, right, especially at the collegiate level, I see a lot of people, and I feel like I can relate to a lot of these kids who are hurt because I've gone through it, but they're going through a lot of mental. And that's like, oh, what's your mental health, right? Because you're always constantly just contemplating, like, I should have
right,
done this, I should have done that, and your mind is just getting you all worked up, and so you can get in your feelings to the point where you just don't even take care of yourself because you had so many, like you said, right, the high expectations of trying to perform out there and go play to first and foremost earn a win starting
right,
spot and to play in front of your family. So a lot of the
right.
shout out to all the poly boys that went through the University of Utah, man, because shoot, I've met a lot of their parents, and you look at the parents, a lot of the parents are proud parents, and like what you alluded to earlier of a lot
Yeah,
of these kids, like where they came from, and being able to shine at that level, right? Shine at that level. Once when
right,
I was done, once when I was done playing ball, I'm fortunate enough to play my last 2 seasons and was a captain my last year, and things didn't go the way I wanted to. I had some injuries, and I tried to go play and extend that to the next level in the NFL, and didn't get an opportunity. And then from there it was kind of like I feel like that was like one of my breaking points right there. Is looking at that, right? Looking myself in the mirror, like, dang, man, I like, because I remember you mentioned, the
yeah,
NFL, and that was the goal, right? That was the goal, is to get to the NFL, to get to the highest stage, to the biggest stage, and in the
Right.
sport, and I didn't. It didn't happen for me. And so, I remember being so mad and just being so frustrated and feeling so lost at the time. I was, dating my wife now. She's a big, uh, she's a big influence on my life and just the trajectory of how things, have gone so far. With all the success that I have, I'm experiencing
Right.
now, and just being so fortunate now. And I feel like that's a lot of it has to do with my parents, and then my wife. And so, I was in my emotions. I was didn't know. I was. We talked about how successful the mission was. I was that guy blaming God. Kind of
Right.
like, man, I did everything that I possibly could, and
Ah,
all
yep.
you needed to do was
Yeah,
just,
yeah, yeah.
push me in. Like, I promise, if you would have did, I would have done something. I would have made the most
Right.
of an opportunity, just like a mini camp
Yeah.
try or something. And long story short, I remember being so
Yeah.
frustrated, so mad, that my wife was just like, let's football ain't the only avenue. But I didn't want to hear that. I didn't want to hear that football wasn't the only avenue. And from
Yeah.
there, I just really had
Yeah.
to, be a big boy, and really had to, like, all right, man, let's try to get into the career. And long story short, I was fortunate enough to have some former Utah players, right? Some former boys that I played with, some of my brothers. There was about 8 of us working at a company called ADP. And so they reached a sales company, and I reached out to them, and they got me on there. I was there for about a year. After a year, before I hit that actual year mark, I told my wife, I'm like, man, she's been hearing it from me for the last 3 months. I'm like, man, sales makes good money, and they have a potential to, like, make even more money. But for me, it ain't even about the money. I'm
Right.
not passionate enough about this. Like, I can't see myself.
Right. Right.
It was like me. I didn't do much knocking on the mission. So during sales, I was doing a ton of knocking, trying to get earn businesses. And
Wow.
from there, I remember she had brought the thought up. She's like, man, what about the strength and conditioning coach at Utah? Because he's of Samoan descent. And shout out to my boss, man, Coach Doug
Right.
Elisaya, who's
Right.
been doing it for 20 plus seasons, at a very
Man,
high
shout out to
level too.
Doug, man.
And shoot, man,
Yeah.
he's one of few directors right now in this space. And I'm talking about all of college. He's the only Samoan director.
Right.
And there's another director who's at San Jose, Nu'u Tafisi, who's of Tongan
Yeah.
descent.
New Toughies. Yeah.
So those are the two guys right there in
Yeah. Yeah.
college. You have a lot of Polynesian assistant strength coaches, but yeah, going back, and my wife,
Right. Right.
she brought that up, and I ended up reaching out to Doug, and he was like, "Yeah, man, come by. Yeah, let's we can do an internship." And then, like, I was there for about 2.5 months, and I get
Yeah.
hired on to go to Westminster, which is another small private college out here, and it just kind of took off from there. Really,
Right.
and then from there, I just but let me back up real quick, though, because I completely forgot something. Sione Pouha. Shout out to my big bro Sione Pouha, who's the defensive line coach at BYU.
Ah.
So in
BYU. Yeah.
2016, yup, 2016, right? He's a former Utah alumni. 2016,
Yeah.
my daughter was born. My oldest daughter was born, but he had reached out to me, and he wanted to open up a gym. He wanted to open up a gym, and he wanted me to be the director, the manager, and run the gym. And I was like, oh yeah, for sure, man,
Right.
let's do it. That was still during that time when I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do in terms of, like, doing
Trying
the
to figure out here.
sales. And
Right.
so I was
Right.
running that. We did that for about almost 2 years, his gym, and that's kind of where it sparked that interest in training, right? To training athletes, and just the physical
Wow.
preparation part.
Yeah.
And that's where I reached out to Doug, and my wife. That's where my wife comes in terms of, like, bringing that, sparking that conversation. Like, man, what do you think about the strength and conditioning coaches at the collegiate level? And then I reach out to them, and yeah. And then for any of the Polynesians out there, or anybody who's watching, wanting to be a strength coach, the roadmap to be a strength coach, first and foremost, you have to have a bachelor's. Once you have your bachelor's, then you have to take an
Yeah.
exam, right? A certification. Once you pass that certification, man, I failed that thing like how many times, to the point where I almost quit, right? To the point where I almost quit and wanted to go a different route,
Right. Right.
or seek a different career, because of how tough and difficult it was. It's
Right. Right.
about a 3-hour exam broken into two different parts, but that's kind of like what we have to practice what we do right now. And so, man, there's a lot of money involved, and a lot of those failings right there, man. Failed how many times, and finally finally passed and was able to be fortunate enough to be, just using my football connections to have people reach out and hire me and give me an opportunity and, played at the University of Utah. I think that's another thing that a lot of these kids got to understand too. I know I'm kind of going off of a little off the riff, but you also got to not only just think about where you're
Nah,
going
you good.
and where you're playing, but also think about the like after life after football. And so, with that being said, like I don't think I would have
Right,
been
right,
here if I didn't go to the University of Utah. And I mean, I'm at the University of Michigan now, and that's because of my connections and my ties. A lot of those are all my former
connections.
coaches.
Yep.
And so, while the NFL might be a lot of these guys, their dream ultimate goal, but you gotta ride on the people, and be very close to those people that you go play wherever these guys go play at. It's pretty cool to see a lot of our Polynesian kids get opportunities to go outside and showcase their
Right,
talents at a lot of these big time universities. But make sure you're also, being connected to the people like behind the scenes too, because you never know them people or them teammates you might
right,
have might be hiring you, or they're gonna be, a lot of these guys are. I had a lot of teammates who were, like
right,
yourself, entrepreneur, and successful at what they're doing, and so football ain't gonna last forever. But
right,
if you're around those, making those type of those real life connections, and you were a good enough person, people will give you a shot, man. They're gonna reach out to you, and they're gonna want you to be part of their
right.
company or to help them run it. So
No, I love that, man. And the reason why I love that is because you know you mentioned something that we're gonna fall right into. But first, I want to give a shout out to your wife, man, because our wives are pretty much the keystone of our existence, right? As
absolutely.
husbands and fathers, they're the ones to kind of give us the we talk about, yeah, we're gonna lead the household, but at the end of the day, they
Dang, you don't
actually
need it.
lead everything. You know what I mean? Like they. My wife actually
Uh
counsels me every time,
no,
like,
that's
"Hey,
good.
come in my office, man." So I'm over here like, and so for me, us, sometimes we got to humble ourselves and cleave to our wives, when the advice is given. So, but shout out to your wife, man, because
No,
that
absolutely.
that journey, what I mean? Like a lot of people can easily break, right? People can fall into that trap, and I've seen a lot of our poly guys that were super talented and they just disappeared, and they disappeared because they either didn't have a good backbone or they either
Mm,
didn't have a good supporting cast. And so a lot of times, like our wives are the ones that don't get a lot of the praises, right?
right.
My wife was actually the reason why I started my business, and started to have that confidence to go out and be myself and really hit home with the community. So but let's talk about now that we're there, and you're in your coaching career right now. What type of advice do you want to give those who are, obviously you talked about they need to get their bachelor's, they need to get all those things, but what is, like, we want to talk more about the passion side of it, because obviously this is a passion to you, like, and a lot of people kind of get into their careers and they don't like it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so what type of advice would you give those that are trying to be coaches or trying to get into that space that you're in? Like, what type of advice would you give them regarding that? What I just mentioned.
Yeah, I think I would say you need to identify what it is that you actually like, what it is that you're actually good at. Um, and
Oh,
then I would, whatever your niche is, I would say pursue that. I know a lot of people. I know a lot of people that are doing, that are in job fields or in careers that they don't necessarily love. And I feel like it definitely, hard.
right,
Life is already hard as it is, man. You got bills, you got families, you got
right,
finances, you
right,
got, just so many, so many. You getting blindsided from all these different directions. Like at the very least, like find something that you really do enjoy, like a hobby or whatever it may be. We joke around about the video games. My brothers love video games, and I see a lot of my nephews too. They love video games, and I'm like, video games ain't necessarily bad, but I mean, if you could figure a way to come up
right.
with something that's
Make
related
some
to
money.
gaming,
Yeah.
yeah, make some money out of that. Then that way, because you have the same way you having fun right now on playing video games is the same way I have fun
Yeah.
doing straight the conditioning. Like I still feel like a player. I
I
still feel
agree
like you get
100%.
all the perks of traveling and being with the team. Well, I mean, but the most important part is being able to touch the lives of a lot of these young men that that I see myself in, right? Um, and being able to kind of,
Right.
play a small part in their career, and just helping them, shaping them into like, we always hear it a lot too, shaping them into men and husbands and fathers one day. That's the ultimate goal, man. You're trying to
Yeah.
install those, a lot of those football principles, right? Those
Those
character building,
values. Yep.
right? A lot of those values. And so that's for me. Yeah, find something that you like doing, what it is that you're passionate about, whether it be finances, it be real estate, it be running your own company. For me, at the end of the day, if I could come up
Right.
with a product, oh, I would for sure. I could probably walk away from this too. But I admire what
Right.
you
Right.
do too, bro. I admire what you do, and how you're your own boss. That a
I
lot of that stuff
appreciate it.
right there, that's like music to my ears. And so it's definitely something that I want to probably pursue here in like the next 5 to 10 years, man. And try to, for me, even though I'm in this field and I
Right.
love and enjoy it, but I'm always just constantly trying to figure, different ways that you can also be,
Learn and yep.
yeah. And like a spoiler alert, right? With strength and conditioning and getting into coaching, man, there's a big sacrifice for your wife and your kids too. So if for those who are watching,
Right.
those who
Right.
are tuning in, man, if you're trying to be a coach and get into the collegiate level like this, man, it's a big time uh sacrifice, right? It's time commitment.
Sacrifice.
And so
Yeah.
for me, like I would, as much as I love this, as much as I love it, I would love it even more to have more time with my family and more time with my wife and kids and be there,
Right.
just to be a dad, to take the kids and watch them play sports and travel with them. And yeah, man, it's just great memories with the family. But going back to your question though, bro, just
Yeah.
yeah, finding a niche, what you're good at, and pursue that, man. It might take a long time, but reach out to the people that are good in those spaces, right? Get some counsel, get some advice. So I feel like a lot of our
Yeah.
Polynesian people are kind of, all over the across the board, and different career paths, man, that you can reach out to. And I know our people are more than willing to share their expertise, or kind of give them a little, give them some knowledge in that sense.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, I appreciate that that insight. Great advice. The other thing is too, like, we'll land our plane with the University of Michigan. But let's hear you share your insight of, what's to expect for Michigan this year, like
Phew.
and the years to come with the whole new coaching staff. I mean, I've always been a big fan of Coach Witt. I've been a huge fan of him, and so watching him at the University of Utah, and a lot of the coaching staffs in Utah has ties to him, and not just that. You guys pick up Jay Hill, crazy. You know what I mean? Like that, that went bonkers. I think that was the Utah County went sick for like a whole month when they heard that. Like, I mean, but I mean, Coach Witt and Kalani, coming under that umbrella, Jay Hill, everybody else, and then yourself. I mean, what's to come for Michigan, man? Give us some insight on that before we land our plane on that.
Yes, sir, man. I'll tell you what, man. It's different. Being at Utah, right? You see a lot of every now and then you see some big freakish specimens, like some athletes, right, that come through who are just measurables are out the window,
Right.
right? 6'5" and above, 300 plus pounds, man. But like Michigan has a ton of these type of caliber dudes, right? And so being there, it's just kind of cool to experience and see the progress that they've made from January, from winter strength and conditioning, how much weight they were able to put
Uh,
on, how much muscle mass they were able to put on. And so for me, this is I think, aside from mentoring, aside from being in this career and loving it, enjoying it, and it's like being a player again. I love the preparation part, because the preparation part, right? Everything starts in the weight room. Right? You can ask Coach Witt. Like Coach Witt's very
right.
first hire, right? His first most important hire, he's going to hire his strength and conditioning coach, because that strength and conditioning coach and that staff is going to
Yep.
spend most time with the players. That's where the culture is being built. That's where the toughness and all the behind
Right.
the scene grind, right? So obviously, when we turn on the TVs to watch football, it's in the month of September. But what actually happened from January all the way to September, that's the part that I'm passionate about in this career,
That's
is
the part.
preparing
Yeah.
these young men, right? Physically, that physical preparation, and just kind of building their confidence, utilizing the weight room to get them big, to get them strong, to get them more explosive. And so to see a lot of these type of caliber guys at Michigan come in the way they already, right? It's like it's pretty exciting, because Michigan
Yeah.
also has the resources too, financially, and everything that you could think of with how NSL or sorry, the NIL is going
Oh
with
yeah.
now. Like they got some deep pockets, and yeah, man, I've within the last just being in there for the last few months, man. Yeah, these guys are spoiled, man. They're spoiled, and so I would say the one thing y'all can
Oh
expect this
yeah.
year is going to
Oh
be
yeah.
it's going to be discipline and toughness, man. Discipline and toughness. That's something that we're trying to. That's at the
Well,
top
just so
of
you know,
our
man.
priority. So
Right. Just so you know, man, since you're over there, man, I've always been following you, man, and I became a Michigan University fan. So
let's go.
for the fan, and I'm a SC fan to the heart, but
Hey,
man, I got to rep the Wolverines, man. So, but appreciate that. I mean, that insight, man, is good for our audience to kind of hear that and kind of give feedback on that because a lot of these guys that are tuning in, especially my high school kids,
let's
and
go.
one of the guys that
Oh
that's
yeah,
the that I'm coaching. He's actually he'll be tuning in and taking a look at that. So, but yeah, he's talked a lot of praise, with Michigan and how you guys operate and stuff like that. So, but I'm excited for his recruiting process and him getting out there and showing his talents elsewhere. Anywhere. I think he can play. On Sundays, like that's just my belief in the kid. But let's end it with, your family. Like let's end it with your wife and your kids. Yeah, I mean you mentioned, earlier that, your boys playing ball or, your kids playing ball. You got any kids, playing sports right now or
yeah. So my two oldest right now. So my daughter, who's 9, she's playing soccer, and it's just rec league, and then my son, my middle child, is 6 years old, and he's playing baseball right now. Coach's pitch, and so
wow.
brand new to me, brand new to him. I have no idea, what it is, but I'm out there yelling, just coaching effort, bro. Like I don't know the rules of baseball, but if I see
Yeah,
him
yeah.
walking, or if I'm not seeing him like locking in, the coach side comes out. You know what I mean? So I'm like, hey, it's all about hustle. It's all about, what I mean? Like being
That's right.
involved and being lost in the game,
Yeah.
watching the ball. It's a long
Right.
sport. Like in terms of just sitting there, you're sitting there just, watching all these young kids. They're not. Some of these kids are still figuring out the coordination piece. But yeah, those that's my two kids right there who play sports. And then my youngest, she's 4. She's a little rascal herself, man, just running around on the side. But we'll eventually get her in sports as well too. So
Right. So I mean like and any last words for your kids? I mean, like, and I always want to end it with this too. Like, if as you get older, as we get older, like, and we watch our kids grow, you know, what do you want your kids one day to remember you as when you get to that age or when it's all said and done? What are some things? And I want you to think about that. What are
yes,
some
sir.
things that you want your kids to remember you as, their dad?
Yeah, I'd say, I want them to remember that like, for me, I'm gonna speak by myself. I hope that they see how loving I am, how kindful I'm just kind to everybody, right? Treating everybody regardless of
Right.
status. I feel like that's kind of like one of my strengths right there is treating everybody equally the same, respecting everybody, whether whatever your status is in the building. You can be the head coach or whatever. It don't matter. You know what I mean? Just treating everybody with respect. At the end of the day, I just want my kids to grow up and be that kind of person, being respectful to everybody. Now, don't get me wrong, don't tolerate no bullcrap or getting bullied or anything like that. But I definitely want them to, you know,
Right.
to be good citizens in humanity. I feel like there's a lot of chaos going right now in this world, you know. And so
Sure.
for
Yeah.
for them, I just want them to be kind to others, to treat others, but not only that, but love their siblings, love their family, and never forget where they come from. And always, you always got to take it back to the
That's
humble
right.
beginnings. For me, my parents are getting old, and so love taking my kids to go see my parents every weekend. Um, yeah, man, spending time with my parents, and just having them. I feel like at the end of the day, man, that's where it really goes back to. We can get caught up in chasing all of these dreams, but one day we ain't gonna be here no more. And
We're gonna
so
be done. Yeah.
being able
That's
just
right.
to really create those memories with your families, being close to them, and just loving with my siblings. None of us are perfect. we still argue every now and
That's right.
then, but at the end of the day, we still show up, we still support. And that's a typical Polynesian
That's right.
family right there, man. You gotta just support them no matter what. Love.
Hey, that's our family,
Uh,
man.
yes, sir. So I never want them to forget that.
Any last words? Oh yeah, for sure, man. Any last words for the queen of your household?
Yeah, so today, May 6th, right? May 6th, shout out to my wife, man. It's her birthday today. And like I said before earlier, man, I wasn't supposed to be here. I wasn't supposed to be. I was supposed to be in Michigan, but yeah, it was a nice little
Right.
surprise being home with her. And so, man, she's really the rock, man. She's really the rock of this family. And like I say, man, the trajectory of my entire, like a lot of my of what I where I'm at now, man, she's a big part of that, and I'm thankful for that. And so, I guess my advice to a lot of young men and women out there who are not married or dating, man, find somebody who's gonna ride out with you, man, through the thick and the thin, man,
All
through the
right.
ups and
Yep.
downs. It's easy to be, it's easy to live life when things are going right, when things are always going your way.
Right.
But I feel like the struggles
Right.
is where you can really truly find yourself and find love. And not only that, but understand how
Right.
much love she has for you. She's tolerated a lot of my unnecessary behavior, and so yeah, man, she's the queen, man, holding it down. So yeah, go ahead and get y'all
Yeah.
somebody who's gonna not only hold you down, but tell you the truth. I hate every now and then I hate talking to my wife because she'll tell me the truth, man. She's like, you shouldn't have done that. That was a
Right.
terrible, so she'll always give me the right counsel. While everybody else, my
Oh man.
family, my friends might give me the things that I want to hear, she gonna tell me the straight, and she gonna be
Right.
very
Right.
direct, very
She
direct.
gonna tell you the real.
She gonna
Yeah.
tell me the real. So yeah, shout out to her. It's her birthday today, man. She about yeah, love my wife and kids, man.
Well, I'm gonna let you go and celebrate that with with your queen. Appreciate you having you on, man. June, man, this has been an amazing time, man. It's good to see you too, man.
Oh, it's good to see you too, bro.
Just watching your journey, man. It's good to see you from even through social media. I'm always, checking in on the boys and, shout out to all the boys, man, that we serve with. They're excited because they all reach out to me. It was like, bro, we can't wait to hear, let's hear the true story of why he was
Hey.
playing rugby in Newell. So, uh, so I'm glad we got that out, man. So, but appreciate you having, taking the time, especially, with your wife's birthday today. Shout out to her. But go and enjoy that with your family, man. And appreciate you coming on. This is Thomas Farley Lou. We're Roots in the City podcast. Appreciate you. And we're on to the next episode. Cheers.
Yes, sir. Go blue.